Thank you. This is wonderful. I'm so happy, and my brother's on too, watching. We're so happy to be able to share this with you guys. We were so happy to find out about you guys, because when we were selling our home, it was our childhood home, and when we were selling it in Chicago, we realized just the extent to which we had boxes and boxes of fossils. And so, we first asked Charlie Shabika if he had any thoughts, and then he said, call Jack Witchery. And then Jack said, look, you need to call ESCONI. So that's been great for us. And we're so happy you guys got a lot of that collection, because it's in such a good home. So I'm going to show you, this is either a trip down memory lane, or this is like a time machine if you didn't know Pit 11 or Mazon in those days, especially Pit 11, which changed so much. So it's going to be a nice selection of slides, mostly our family, going through Pit 11 and then Mazon. And then at the end, I'll show you some of the nice fossils that we found over the years. And please pipe in at any point. I'm hoping that we can, just all share this as a kind of discussion. So this is my father, Sam, and our little family dog, Cepheus. This is a picture from 1969. Now, I don't see all of you because I can't see a show of hands, but I'm curious how many of you remember Pit 11 when it looked like this. This is the Pit 11 with no trees on it or anything, and just the mounds. And when you went hiking, you had to be careful because you could fall into that little lake. We would always think the best fossils were down at the water line, and you would like lower yourself on knees to get down there, and then try not to fall in the water. And it would often be 100, 105 because we'd go in the summer. So it was quite an outing. In 1969, I was born in 54, so I would have been 15 on trips at this time. So this is my part of my family. This is my mom in the center, my brother with the knapsack, me and with our family dog, my cousins, and we've just arrived, and those are the hills behind us, kind of the perfect hills, and you had to kind of figure out which hills you wanted. The younger hills were better than the ones growing with trees. You first had to stop at the steeple house, and you had to register, you had to sign in. It was very laissez-faire, but they did want to know you were there. You drove in, you stopped, you filled out a simple form, which wouldn't pass muster today on insurance, but that's all they asked. Then you would start driving in, and you had your favorite areas, or you had your areas, especially that were young. The only thing they would say to you, yes.
Peter, was there a particular area that you guys used to go to?
Well, the funny thing was that
like southern.
Right. We always just went whatever looked fresh, whatever hills looked like they were sun bleached without vegetation. But if you went with, the few times I went with aficionado friends that, were like super Pit 11 nerds, they had the super special spots. And one time I just hadn't been finding any Tully Monsters, and I wanted a Tully. And I went with these guys who were going there every weekend, and they said, oh yeah, just go over that hill, and you'll see like two little hills. And he said, that's just loaded with Tullys. And I came back with a beautiful Tully about 20 minutes later. So there certainly was secret knowledge of Pit 11. I'm not sure that we had any strategy beyond looking for those mounds that didn't have fresh trees.
I too went in 70. I was in 4th grade. I still have the thing we signed.
Wow.
And all I remember, my father took us in, 6 kids, and they just said, stay away from the equipment. I think they said, stay away from the blasting equipment. It's the only thing they said.
Yeah, they would say, stay away from where they're freshly digging. And this gives you a sense of scale. They were pretty tall. The mounds were pretty high, and you could get lost. I mean, that was the funny thing. We'd pack a lunch, and then we'd all meet back up at the car, but you could just about get lost. Then you'd have to look for the tallest mound and see if you could figure out where the car was. This is a friend on the left and me on the right. And this This picture is from 1972. So, you know, it's just like I'm 18 in this picture. And we would come out here, not, you know, only a couple times a summer, you know, sometimes as a family, sometimes with a friend. This was our friend's Volkswagen. So on this trip, it was just he and I.
Should I take it this is before Braidwood Lake?
I don't remember a big lake. So, you know, they hadn't plowed any of the hills down yet.
Are you familiar with
Oh,
Trino
where the Braidwood Lake, where the power or the nuclear station was.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that was still there. I was there already.
Okay.
And that's my brother Paul hiking up. And you know, you could slip on these. You had to, it was an exercise, you know, you got to work out. It was cardio. This is the Peabody Coal Company sign. Are you guys getting a clear slide? You're not seeing the names on the side, right? You have a full view? You're getting a full view.
Yeah, we can see the edge of the car.
Good. So yeah, that's the Wilmington coal, you know, Peabody coal, Wilmington, and same era. These are some of the older hills with already grown up. And this is 1974, this picture. This car, by the way, is a Volkswagen Type 3. I don't know if any of you know about the Volkswagen Type 3. We talked my father into buying that for us, and I think he regretted it, but we had fun with that car, and
looks like you beat it up.
We beat it up. And you can't read the sign. I'll show it to you in the next picture. This is our last day at Pit 11. And so that was 1974. The next slide will show the sign that my father wrote. This is inimitable in my father's style. So he wrote, "Farewell, Pit 11, September 8th, 1974. All things change, not necessarily for the better either."
So why was it your last trip?
Well, you know, we knew they were gonna. We knew that they were going to start, start reconstructing. What's the word I want to start? The restoration or restoring, yeah. And so we knew that was coming, and I think they did start that within 2 or so years. Someone might know the date of when the bulldozers came, but we knew that Pit 11 was ending, and so we had this kind of sense of memorial. So that's what the sign says. In looking at these pictures, I'm surprised at our family dog Seth that he went to so many of the trips to Pit 11. But it wasn't our last trip, because then the following year, Gene Richardson organized a trip from the Field Museum to Pit 11. And so this is my father, Sam, and then Gene, and then my mom, Mickey, and me. And we're packed up. They had a group in a rented school bus, and we drove off to Pit 11. And then this is a lovely collection from that day, which is going to make you smile when you see like the plentitude at that time.
Oh, my Lord.
Crazy, right? Crazy. So now we're going to leave Pit 11. We're going to go back in time. This is Greer, and my father and mother, you know, when they just sort of discovered the coal pit, coal shale fossil hunting, because they had been fossil hunting all around the U.S. and various, I mean, we went to Beartooth Butte and all these things. Every family vacation was built around fossil hunting. And so, you know, then they discovered that we could do Mazon Creek, and they discovered you could do Greer. And this is 1958, so I'm just 4 years old at this time. Greer, for those of you who don't know Greer, it was just a very nearby. It was all part of the Francis Creek Shale underlayer, but they were using this site to simply train people in how to use bulldozers and end loaders So, and they allowed you to come on the site and find concretions, which they had dug up inadvertently, teaching people how to dig deep holes with the Caterpillar machinery. And so you can see by the age of the car, you know, we're talking 1958. But the interesting thing about Greer, and as I say, I don't remember Greer, and we didn't go back there. I never went to Greer. Once we discovered Mazon was so much fun, you know, that we never went back to Greer. But Greer was famous for large plant fossils, really big sizes. And so, you know, it's interesting how each area had its kinds of concretions and its kinds of flora and fauna. So this is my brother, who's 6 in this picture. He's 2 years older than me, examining the finds at Greer.
Hey, Peter, I had a question about opening the concretions.
Yes.
In this photo and 2 prior, when you showed us the bounty of pit 11, it appeared to me that a lot of them were hammered open.
Yes.
Did the concept of freeze thawing occur to you, or was it even in the discussion, or did that come much later?
Much later. We only knew hammers. Yeah. And we only, and it wasn't a good day out if somebody didn't bash their thumb. I mean, and it's true, looking back at them, how many of our fossils, you know, carry that chipped edges, and sometimes the damage was there. And, you know, freezing and thawing is truly better. And every now and then, of course, a fossil would naturally expose itself, having split naturally. And I'm sure that's what gave the idea of the freezing and thawing, because you would find sometimes, but, you know, then they were subject to mud or something covering them. So if they were lying out on the slag heap and they were already exposed because they had naturally split open, you had to be lucky that they weren't covered with a film layer of mud or something to obscure them. But yeah, we cracked them. You know, you would look for your cracking rock, and then you would crack them all open.
Yeah, it seemed to be apparent in like two frames ago.
Oh, yeah.
There seemed to be like an anvil and a hammer and a lot of laid out hammered stones. And it's interesting, you mentioned earlier in the talk that you avoided the older hills.
Mm-hmm.
But when that may have been the spot where some of the concretions were naturally opening, naturally, you know, seasoned, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, you could walk an hour and not really have found, at pit 11, you could walk an hour and not really have found too many wonderful things, a lot of blobs and maybe, you know, not too much. And then you'd hit a hill that for some reason had 2 or 3 really good things in it. And I don't know what that distribution represents. And it's interesting to think about I'm not sure what our prejudice was for the sun-baked hills. You know, as kids, it was a Badlands and we just enjoyed hiking it. You really felt like you were out in the Badlands. And so, you know, to be on those, like I said, you could really get lost, and you'd find a little lake section and, you know, one of those ponds, and then all the stark hills, and it would be really hot out. And so it really was like you were suddenly transported to the West. You know, you felt like you were in the Badlands.
Well, you heard that we had a field trip today to the Braceville spoil pile.
Yeah.
And although it's only one hill versus the magnificence of, you know, getting lost in a sea of them.
Yeah.
Half the fun is running up and down the hill, you know,
totally.
Especially for the kids.
Yeah. And you can imagine our family dog, you know, he had a field day there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would agree with Peter that, yeah, it was like the Badlands, and you know, it was vast, especially when you were little, and you could get lost in them. And I just think there were so many things around, you just hammered them, because that's what I saw all the other people that were there, they did. I mean, George Langford hammered all those things if you read his stuff. Back then when it was not, they were everywhere. There was enough that who cared? You wanted something now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you just had time. Plus, you couldn't carry enough. There were so many.
Yeah. And it was magical as a kid. You know, you would be banging away and this thing would split open, and then, you know, preposterously, there would be this beautiful fern inside. Like, what? How is that possible, right? So it was quite magical, and the act of smashing it open was somehow linked to the whole process, you know, whereas it is a better way to freeze them open, and because it preserves and it follows the fault lines better of you know, the piece inside. But yeah, there is something magical about smashing away on these things, you know, especially if you're 10 years old.
I do remember my thumb was hit so many times the first day, it turned black and fell off for 3 months.
Yes. Yeah, and we always counted on someone hitting their thumb. It was often my father. So you'd hear the cry. And so here we go, Mazon. So we're gonna move on to Mazon Creek now. Yeah, as you see, my folks were life members of the Mazon Creek project.
What happened to pit
Sorry?
11? Is it still
11?
here?
Yeah, so now I've moved on to Mazon, our fossil hunting in Mazon Creek.
But what happened to pit 11? Is it
Yeah,
still
so I can return later if you would like to see some more of those shots of pit 11. But now these from here, I'm going to show you from the same, covering really the same time period, Mazon Creek, because my father had found a newspaper article on Mazon Creek, and he tried to track it down. This is 1958, and he had tried to track down how you get to the creek and where they showed the Benson farm, but wasn't all identified. And so it took a lot of sort of strategy at that time. I'm sure there were others that knew other ways of getting access, but my father, like, really, he just created his own route of access by befriending the Bensons and creating this opportunity to go through their property down to the creek. So for us, all of our fossil hunting on Mazon was done through the Benson farm. So that's me on the right. And I see they dressed my brother and I the same. That's Mom, and she's paying no attention to me because that was a different era. So just trusting I wasn't going to fall in the water. And for us, it was this great adventure. The shale layer could be slippery, and you had, as you guys know, and you had to watch your footing, and you had to get down there through the poison ivy and whatnot to the water. And the water was pretty shallow. Again, as any of you know who've been through there, the water never gets very deep. Sometimes if there's enough rain, you can bring a canoe through. But that's my brother pointing out, a fossilized layer. Maybe that was a long stem. Here's my father lowering himself down. We'd always tie a rope to a tree and lower ourselves down because the side bank could be quite muddy. I don't know what my father has in that box. I think it's a clear box that I think he was collecting dragonfly nymphs that live in the water so he could feed his coolie loach fish back at our house. And then a nice black and white shot of the shale layer, and you can see a concretion there. Sometimes there would be these really big ones in the shale, and they wouldn't often have anything in them, and they'd be a lot of work to bang open with the hammer. And we got to know where the shale was hard, you wouldn't find the good concretions. Where the shale was closer to the water and a little softer is where you would find them. We really kind of learned that whole bank. And I understand now it's not something you guys can really do anymore, is the banks, because of erosion, and the farm property is not anxious to have people landing and digging into the banks. But it was, that was our little stomping ground. So this is some of the big concretions that we would pull out of the bank. And these pictures are all, again, from 1958. So this is quite a long time ago. And then the creek itself, again, from that time, and looking so, exotic. I'm sure it looks the same today, but it's just in this picture, you could imagine that you could be in, Guatemala or something. It's just the way the vines, and it's always such a beautiful sight. It's a tributary of the Illinois River. I'm imagining everyone's been there, but if you haven't, it is a really beautiful stream.
That almost looks like sorry.
That's okay. It almost looks like what?
He was getting an echo.
That's okay.
I was gonna say that almost looks like it was looking downstream.
Yeah, so that's interesting. The upstream, I'll go back. The upstream, downstream, you know, the patch on the Benson farm, and I have a picture coming up of the Bensons. So I'll show you the Bensons that we actually went through two parts of the family. You know, it started out with one and the other, and I'll mention that. It's interesting. But we only knew the stream for that short stretch that was on the Benson's property. And it's interesting how well we got to know it. You got to know how far you could go in either direction, and then the shale layer would disappear or it wouldn't be productive anymore. The productive part was very close to where we would lower ourselves down, and there was a little bit of a water, you know, just the high ground was draining out through and left this whole long patch where the water coming from the farm field had eroded away any vegetation. And that was always one of the best spots. And you would always hit that spot first. You know, you'd race over to that spot and pull out all the best ones that had surfaced from the year before. This as upstream or downstream, that's so interesting. I know, I'll show you a picture I know is looking downstream. I think this is looking upstream because I think this is the far end of where we would get fossils. I think this on the right there is about where the patch of shale ended.
You may know, I think I told you, is we collect there once a year, but from the other side of the river, from the Kodat farm, and it looks very familiar. It doesn't look that much different.
Oh, that's so interesting that it's not, I suppose it's not surprising that it hasn't changed much. But we occasionally would cross the river to that side, but we never found anything on that side. We never thought of it as, and we would try to find things in the river and you wouldn't find much. And if you went too much further than where they're having lunch, where we're all having lunch, you wouldn't find much. I mean, the sweet spot was narrow on the Benson farm in the days that we were there. And it could have just been that we had gotten so used to it and sort of memorized all its nooks and crannies. So this is 1972. I'm now 18, you know, just starting college, and my brother is 20, and my father and my mother obviously took the picture. So, but we would often go with friends as well, but sometimes it would just be the four of us. And that was like, we're sitting on the choice stretch for us. You know, that's the choice stretch where we did most of our fossil hunting. Fishing them out of the river. And that's pretty high water on this trip. That's that same trip from 1972. So you guys, there's no shale showing there. So you must be, well, you were directly across from the Bensons. It must be lower water, because when the water was too high, you wouldn't find shale on the other side.
Do you know what time of year that was?
You know, we would go, here's my brother, I would have to ask him, but we would go at different times in the summer. Sometimes it would be, you know, in the heat of the summer. Sometimes it would go in the spring. I would imagine this was a spring trip. You know, if it was today, we would take this picture with our iPhone and it would timestamp and date stamp it. But these are Kodachromes. These are scanned Kodachrome slides.
Wow. See, we normally go in the fall, late August.
Oh yeah, no,
we tend to be much lower then.
Yeah, I'm sure we went in August once or twice, but we would often go in summer and summer school break and all of that.
Nice Macroneuropterus there in the bucket.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right on the top of the pile.
Dave, you've been there quite a bit, different times of the year too, haven't you?
Yes, I've been, except for dead of winter, yeah, I suppose. But yeah, probably from March through October, I've been there numerous times in the last 20 years since I've been working on Pete's land for the research I did, and then those of us who do the yearly thing for the I&M Canal. And then there's other parts of the river I've been on too, but yes.
Yeah.
I ought to reach out and grab that concretion right there.
I know, this is kind of, it's so yummy, right? It looks so yummy, like I'm gonna just take that. And of course, you know, the Bensons, they worried a little bit about, you know, were we hurting the bank? And Russell, who was the other brother who we later were getting permission from, was first it was Fred and then later Russell. He was more stern. Fred was very hands-off. He's just go down there and have fun. Russell was more like, no, please don't dig in the bank. I don't want any digging in the bank. And, you know, I get it. And where we dug mostly was just right out, almost at the water level or a couple feet up from the water level. It was they were gonna come out naturally. So this is Russell and Mrs. Benson. And did anyone in the group ever go to Mazon through this route, through the Benson farm? I'm curious.
Those of us
I've been there through the Bensons too, early on, but.
Yeah, and so did you went through between the cornfields and then down to the tree line you see and take the right turn and and then around to the lower field?
We started near the house because that's where we met them, and that's all I remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it wasn't that long ago. This was still, I was an adult, but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah. And was it Russell? Was it Russell Benson that you?
I think he was still alive 20 years ago.
Yeah. So like I was saying, it started with my father getting to know Fred Benson from the newspaper article identifying the property, and I'm sure it was known at that point, but that's how we got there. And then my father would always be sure he remembered what beer Fred Benson liked. And then we would bring a 6-pack. And then we would bring a 6-pack to Russell. Later, when it became Russell's farm, they traded farms. And so Fred went on the other side of the road and Russell was on this side of the road now. So now you went through Russell's, and he was also very friendly. But then he didn't drink anymore. So we would bring him a non-alcoholic 6-pack. And I don't know the tradition of the 6-pack, but it was amusing to us as kids. We would sit in the car waiting for my father to go knock on the door with the 6-pack. And then they would come out and they were super friendly. And then we would go down so it was 2 big fields, 2 big farm fields. And you took a long, if you had to walk it, it was a long walk. If you could drive it, you couldn't always drive it because where a tractor can go and where a car can go, of course, are 2 different things. So you could sometimes drive it all the way, most of the time drive it all the way. There was a few times when we had to park and walk it. And then you walked all the way to that tree line you're seeing, and then you took a right turn. And then behind the trees, there was a road in the trees, and you went all the way down there and then took another turn down, and then you parked. And I have a picture of us having lunch where you parked, or you walked all the way in if you had to. So this is 1974 again. So I'm 2 years older than in the last set of pictures. And this one, so at this point I'm a sophomore in college, and my brother, he's getting close to graduating college, and then canoers. And so maybe some of you have come to this site on a canoe. Has anyone canoed into the fossil hunting area? I've always thought that would be romantic to like canoe and then park your canoe for lunch and fill up a couple pails of concretions and continue on your way.
Always been tempted, but because of laws today, we generally don't do it.
The law would prevent you from what would be the infraction?
Well, this is non-navigable.
Okay.
So property lines meet up in the middle of the river, and The ground you step on is private property.
Anywhere in this river is private property.
Yeah. So you'd have to get the okay of everybody that you want to trespass on before you can really do anything.
All right, so interesting. So this scene is truly, this is a historic moment. Fossil hunting with canoers.
Well, some of us know fossil hunting with canoers, but we were not in the canoes. But that goes back to the Euro discussion. Those people know who I'm talking about.
Yep, yep. And you can see on the ground, you know, our little collection of finds for the day. And I think my brother has a hammer. I think he's about to break one open. And we would tie a rope to the tree and lower ourselves down because, like I said, this is a well-worn path. So I don't know if it was fossil hunters or what, but it's interesting that I look at this picture that is so well-worn. So this is up on the, you know, where we had lunch. This is, if you could get the car all the way in, this is where we would pull it in and park on the Benson farm. It was their lower field. They had those two high fields and then this lower field. So family, friends, and mom and dad, and again, our dog, Seth. And we would usually, you know, fossil hunt the morning. Well, it took, you know, it's an hour and a half to get there from Chicago. And then we would hunt for a couple hours and then take a lunch break and hunt a couple more hours and head home.
So your mom uses binoculars to find concretions, huh?
So that's our family friend Mildred Williams with the binoculars. My mom's in the white hat, but Mildred is an avid birder, so she would bird and she would do birding while we were fossil hunting. And the woodland was really healthy. You know, it had mayaples and trillium and all of it, you know, because it hadn't really been used for anything except the dividing area between the farm fields. And so it really was quite a lovely woodland that you went alongside of.
Is that your father? It looks like he's about to dive in.
Yeah, my father was a very extraordinary person and never one to shy away from fully immersing himself in any activity.
It's awesome to see these pictures.
I guess we're like training our dog to sniff out a good Neuropterus.
Did the dog ever go into the river? Did it swim?
You know, he was a wonderful dog. He was a Beagle Airedale mix. He wasn't a huge water dog. You know, he loved to chase squirrels. He was very smart, but he wasn't really much of a water dog. I think we took him and put him in the water a few times just to annoy him, and then he would come running out.
What a great companion, though, on your adventures. You know?
I know, right?
Yeah,
I know. And this is the last. I was already away in graduate school. This is the last set of times we went to Mazon. My father went. This is my cousin Ellen and Mark. And you know, this is getting towards 1984, and I was down in Alabama in graduate art school, but my father still would go out sometimes by himself. And so this is really, I think this was his last trip. He obviously went with mom because she took the picture too. I mean, they would go together, of course, but sometimes just the two of them would go to the creek. And this is what they found on that day.
Very nice.
All right, so now, yes, so now Rich and Keith checking through the finds. They were finding some good stuff in these drawers too, because it had been a while since my brother was teaching architectural history and they live in Urbana, Illinois, and I live now in Brooklyn, but I was down in Alabama for a long time, and so we had sort of forgotten how many wonderful things, and we hadn't identified them all, and so it was really a joy to have some of this, to have you guys look at this and identify some of them. And so now the rest of this presentation, I have just pictures of some of the nice fossils from the collection. So I'll show you those, and anyone pipe up who can positively identify, and there's a few that are slightly mysterious. I mean, we all know the Tully Monsters. But. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, as Rich and Keith will testify. We had boxes and boxes and boxes. I didn't realize how much my father had saved in the basement. This was it in the garage, just maybe half of what we had. So these are two happy after they've loaded the car. And
I was wearing a mask. I just took it off for the picture.
Oh yes, the masks. We don't even know what's going on out here in Brooklyn. There's so much controversy about it, but that's another story. So here's some nice fossils from the collection. This is a big acanthotelson that you can see a lovely intestinal tract. If you love to see a lovely intestinal tract on a shrimp, you have to say this is a good one.
I think that's actually Kelly Brooksia. What do you think, Andrew?
I'm going to go with the Lobatelson camp, but I'm not sure.
It's pretty big. It's about the size.
Just because the rostrum is so long, on the left side, but I don't know.
Not an acanthotelson, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think Lobatelson might be his family.
Okay, here's the other half, and it's about the size of a bar of soap or a little bigger. It's a fairly big concretion. This one opened without any real damage. You just see a few little chips on the. Sometimes you could get away with it with the hammer because they would be so ready to open.
Yeah. And
you didn't have to work nearly as hard on pit 11 concretions. They were so different in their makeup, the mineral makeup was so different with all that iron in them or whatever that was in the pit 11 concretions. And so they would open easier. The Mazon concretions were, this is a pit 11 concretion and they were easier to open. The Mazon concretions, if they weren't going to split, they weren't going to split. It's like they were a handful. And it would be interesting to know if the Mazon ones, someone might know this from experience. Is there much difference in freeze opening pit 11 versus Mazon?
Yes, a lot. You got to be a lot gentler with the Mazon concretions because sometimes they're softer in nature. I know some people who put the small ones in like paper cups and would freeze them, and they just kept using paper cups or I use small plastic containers to freeze the little ones. But the Mazon concretions needed to be checked more often and more frequently so they didn't disintegrate. The ice could destroy them.
I think a contributing factor is the water environment too. At least for those of us who've done the canal corridor, most of the concretions that we're finding are in the water. and have been in the water for a long time. So sometimes I'm thinking that we have to let them dry out a little bit before we actually start the freeze thaw process.
Because it just starts splitting in lots of layers, not just the one you want.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And because of those layers, like you mentioned, we tend to go longer, not just after the first split, because you may get a split or two later that has the fossil on it.
Nicely, Scar.
And this is a pretty long concretion, you know, it's bigger than a banana. And it was unusual to find, you know, such a significant size. This is the Tully Monster that I asked the guys, you know, this is, okay, so, you know, I was determined to have a Tully Monster, right? And I hadn't found one. I don't know why, because then in the end, they weren't so impossibly hard to find. I mean, if you put your mind to it, you could have 3 or 4 pretty good ones in your collection. But I hadn't found one yet, and this is the one where the guys said, go over there to Tully Gulch and you'll find one. And it's again, this is again about the size of a banana. It's pretty big. So I reckon this is like a full-grown Tully. I just read this article on Tullys, right? Everybody's read it. I don't know the controversy. Maybe it didn't come out that recent, but what is it? And so it was so interesting. There was you know, it's a fun one to look up because I think they finally resolved what it is, you know, where it fits, what genus, where it fits in what kind of animal was it?
Paul, who's on this meeting, actually is one of the authors of some of the latest papers.
Paul, are you going to unmute and?
Hello.
Paul, unmute and give us the true word on the Tully.
So we looked at, I think, about 1,300 Tully monsters.
Oh my God.
At the museum. And from that, we found a dozen or so, maybe 2 dozen, that had some key characteristics. And we identified it as actually a fish, an agnathan fish, which are the jawless fish.
Yep.
So the closest living relatives would be the lampreys and the hagfish.
Yeah, right.
We actually identified it as an early lamprey is what we think it is, but it's a lot different than a modern day lamprey.
Yeah, they don't have eyes on stalks or.
Right, and they don't have a proboscis like that. The mouth is completely different. So,
yeah.
And then we've done another paper that just came out last year or early this year, looking at some of the organic signals that's still left over from molecules that have degraded over time but are still there, and they match up with vertebrate fossils. So got some extra and a different way of showing that it's also a vertebrate, although there are no bones, just cartilage.
Cool. Yeah. So this was a pretty exciting find. This was a Pit 11 find. We had just arrived with friends from high school, and it just was like laying out there like it wanted to be picked up because it was not. I didn't open it. I just was walking. I had just gotten out of the car, and I was just 5 minutes at Pit 11 walking along, and this fish was lying there on the mound, one of those barren mounds, just looking at me. And this is it in black and white, just so you can see how wonderfully detailed this little armored minnow. I guess he's like a coelacanth in his construction, but he's only, 2 inches long. And Rich, you said this was big tooth or?
I'm not sure. Andrew, what do you think? A worm, or what would you say that is?
Looks like Dodontogaster worm, tummy tooth worm.
Tummy tooth. That's what I was trying to remember.
And I think that black dot may be the jaws.
If I remember right, that shows up pretty good in person. And let me just say that fish that you have is breathtaking in person.
Yeah. And that's an Elonichthys, isn't it? That fish?
Yes, it is. Yes. Yeah, it's amazing the scales if you put a loop on it. It's amazing the detail, really.
The scales are just absolutely perfect.
And that eye and those teeth are really quite, I mean, the teeth are so real. It's such a fierce little thing. You're like, emotionally, I respond to that fish. He's so determined and he's so fierce. It's like, it's like a minnow on steroids. It's like the whole construction of it is so, and it's so interesting that these concretions present themselves. I know it's the mechanics of the chemical mechanics of what's leaching into the mud around them, but it's still, I never lost the magic or miraculousness that it hardened. I mean, what if the mechanics of the chemistry caused it to be softer mud? Why did the mechanics make it harder mud? So it's such a gift in a funny way to the future that concretion fossils fossilized it the way they did.
Looks like a blade.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, you can see two eyes. It looks almost like a semi-dorsal view. Or it's twisted or something. You can see two eyes on the left side. A blade.
A blade.
A blade.
Nice cyclist.
This Americanus?
Yeah. This is one of those Greer, one of the ones from Greer that was so big and majestic. This guy is, he's not much smaller than he's appearing on your screen.
Rich, are you having an emotional response to that?
I couldn't get my mute off. That's Elthopterus sterlii.
Yeah.
My favorite.
I know you were scrambling and trembling for your mute button, right?
It is delicious, right? It's very delicious. Gosh.
It's his favorite plant, so I kind of softball pitched that one to him.
Yeah, and my father sugar-coated it for you all those years ago.
Very much so.
And this little horseshoe crab.
Was that the one that was the chip out of the real big concretion, or that was a separate one, right?
Yeah, no, this is the little chip one. This is the little chip one. I think this is the one that my father had mounted on a board with a couple other things. So maybe the chip one is a different one, and I didn't photograph it for the talk. And then this guy, you were wondering, so I put it back up so you could is it a seed pod or what's going on with this? Interesting.
Not stigmaria?
Yeah, root.
Yeah, it might be some root tissue. They called stigmaroides, I think now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so the little rootlets would come out of those spots.
Right. That makes sense.
Maybe that. Oh, nice.
And this is a Mazon shrimp. The Mazon, to find fauna at Mazon was much rarer, so much rarer than finding fauna at Pit 11. And so it was really quite spectacular when you would find something like this at Mazon. And then it would have that Mazon look, so dramatic. A nice Pit 11 shrimp.
Was that the one you found open?
Yes, this one was open.
Yeah, you said you were walking within the hills and just found it, just like that, right?
Yes. Yes, if you were lucky at pit 11, you could find both halves together, but the minute you picked them up, they were in two halves. And of course, at pit 11, if you lost the other half through history, through time and geology, you never could find it. Like the fish, you know, was only that half. I looked and looked, but I mean, who knows when? Who knows if it was lost when it went on the conveyor belt and formed the mound, or whether it had already been lost underground, its other half, but it certainly wasn't there. But sometimes the concretions would open it. Never at Mazon would they open on their own. They just didn't. I mean, but at pit 11, they would sometimes be open like this, but still together.
Phil, who's on the call, found a really nice scorpion. We were trying to find the other half for him. He's still looking.
Brock found a second half to something he'd found like a year later, the same area. One of the few times I've heard about that happening, he told me about it. I forget what it was. But it was a pretty nice fossil, as I recall.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's like getting hit by lightning twice on a golf course or something.
Phil and Valerie, tell them about the story of finding both halves of the shrimp when we were looking for the other half of the scorpion.
Well, yeah, when we were over there looking for the other half of the scorpion, we were talking about the fact that there'd been shrimp found there, and I said, yeah, I had a day there, it wasn't very good, I wasn't finding anything, but then I found an open shrimp by this tree right here, and I pointed to the tree, and then I went away, and the rest of the day went on, and towards the end of the day, Phil went up on a ridge. What were you, 30 yards away?
30 feet.
30 feet away from where I'd found that one, and he finds this open shrimp. He gets it home and he's showing it to me, and I'm thinking, wow, it looks really familiar. So I went back to my box and got out the shrimp that I had found to see if it was the same kind, never dreaming it would be the other half, and came back and it was the other half.
Yeah, that was a year later.
Wow.
So we put them in the same box, and I guess we'll just always have to stay married because they have to be together.
They have to be together.
But there they are. You can see it well, but
yeah,
it was pretty fun.
That's pretty great. So there's probably some useful information in there, but it may only be something about the force applied to the fossils as they went up the conveyor belt from the from the active vein,
Exactly. Yeah.
It had just enough power to send them out 30 feet or whatever.
Yep. As they dumped the bucket.
They dumped the bucket. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, that's a good story. Wow, that's cool. So this is a photo of a photo. That's why it doesn't look like much on the screen. But does anyone want to call it out? It's what you don't want to find under your kitchen sink.
Spider.
It's a big cockroach head, So this was when I was a kid, my best finds. This is a Mazon Creek cockroach that I split open at some point in middle school. And we took it to Gene Richardson at the Field Museum. The Field Museum members nights. Is this ringing a bell with a lot of people? The members night at the Field Museum. So you could go up on members night to the upper reaches, way up in the attic, and see all the different rooms where all the curating was done and all the preparation of all the specimens in the Field Museum and all the research rooms.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're having a virtual member night at the Field Museum the 20th and 21st, I think. And as you're talking, I'm working on my presentation for that now.
Fantastic. Yeah, so it was a special. You would save up your best fossils, and then you would track down Gene's area, and then he would identify them for you. And so
with his pipe, always. Yes,
exactly.
I definitely had fossils identified by Eugene Richardson there.
Yes. My father has a little group of them with a rubber band around the piece of paper that identifies them from those evenings up at members night. And so I brought the cockroach, with, enormous expectation, because I knew it was this really great fossil. And of course it got oohs and ahs. And then they asked if they could, keep it for the collection. And of course, this was a bit traumatic for me, I have to say. But I bravely said, yes, I would donate this to the collection at the Field Museum. So it's up there in a drawer somewhere to this day. And all I got from it was this photo. But that's cool. That's cool. I'm cool with the photo. And I even forgot what it looked like. And then when we were going through everything, we happened on the photo again. And of course it was out of focus, but whatever. It's still there. So it is a nice piece. It's the the head of the cockroach with the plates, and you can see the kind of the strong, plates of the whatever he was, maybe 4-inch, 5-inch roach, big time roach. But even that's not the sort of the choicest. The choicest, I think, is my brother's insect, which is coming up.
Well, if you want to send me that photo, I'll look for it in the collection and send you a nice photo at the very least.
Oh, thank you. All right, Paul, I will do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the link or in the chat.
Okay, great. So, Rich, you were oohing over this one, right?
Yeah, that's Andrew's favorite. That's a Flavia. Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that very much. I like the weird stuff at Mazon,
Yeah.
Sort of basal plants, the Cyclopterus, all those kinds of things. The oddballs.
Yeah.
The edges. And this is a beauty. It looks like it's straight out of a salad bar,
I know, it's what I was saying. It looks like it's presenting itself, it's just like, it looks fresh.
Yeah. A little oil and vinegar and balsamic, and you're good, chewy. Very nice. That's a river stone, Peter?
Yeah, so this is a Mazon.
Mm-hmm.
The only possibility would be Greer, because I don't recollect it literally, but I suspect it's Mazon. I mean, the Greer stuff, and you would need my father, so that time has passed when we could have gotten a positive idea on but I think, this one's in the collection here. I have to look again, and I think I could tell from the outside, although I'm not so sure that the Greer and Mazon, but it's definitely either Greer or Mazon.
Yeah, the lower, the left half, the lower right corner of it seems to have that kind of a layering that looks very characteristic of the river.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it felt like a river stone to me. But
yeah, I think it's Mazon.
Nice shrimp.
He's so fluffy. And what do people think this is?
I think it's a polycate worm for sure, but it might be, Paul, do you know if that's one of the more unusual ones, like a shovel nose worm or something like that? Has an unusual head.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It feels segmented on the right half, like there's some setae or something there.
Right, but it's got that weird kind of pattern on the head area there.
Right.
Flakes.
Yeah, I think it's an unusual polycate, I would say, my guess.
A little Tully and then a nice Tully.
Folded in half.
Yeah, he as he demised, I guess, a wave caught him.
It's a yoga Tully.
Yeah, a flexible Tully.
I like the eye bars. Yeah, it looks like there's eye pigment.
Yeah, I right here, right? That would be
Yep.
Neat.
That's unusual.
They say the eye is, the eye evolution's greatest achievement, you know, is the eye. Just the fact that we living things on Earth managed over billions of years to create a receptor for visible light is really, and then how it works is really insane. And it's so cool to think that even like a Tully Monster has this eye going, even if it put it out on a stalk. And then this is my brother Paul's insect, and this was a Mazon find. And we didn't know, we suspected, but we didn't know the quality of this piece at first because it was hidden in the rock. And then, but we showed it oh, I wish my brother, I should have asked him a little more details on this one, but there's a researcher who was doing, she was doing insects, and then she carefully excavated it. So you see the beautiful excavation that was done to reveal the legs and things.
Peter, was the researcher's last name Kuklova Peck?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
She has a signature prepping style.
Okay. So you identified it. Yeah, it was. It was Kuklova Peck. She said, I would love to, if you guys don't mind, I would love to work on this specimen a little and see what's there.
She's a scientist and a sculptor.
Yeah. And so that's it. This is my father's curiosity cabinet that I have lugged all the way back here to Brooklyn. But, you know, I thought I'd finish with this slide because, you know, my folks and their, you know, that it's aptly named, their curiosity and adventure spirit is, you know, was so important to us growing up, and fossils played, you know, such a role in that for us, you know, not just in Mazon and Illinois, but also in other parts of the country. But so, yeah, I'm going to try to, you know, I got it here in one piece without the glass broken. So I'm going to try to get it, you know, reinstalled with some of these fossil specimens in it. And well, that's it. Thanks.
Peter, that curio cabinet is a monument. That is magnificent.
I got some questions.
And you know, for all the emotion and obviously, you know, family events, et cetera, that we saw in the photographs throughout the presentation, that's a beautiful finish right there. It's gorgeous. I have one quick question. You mentioned going to grad school in art in Alabama. What school was that?
So that's Tuscaloosa, you know, the big state school, the one with the big football team and all of that. They have a nice graduate art school, but I first went down there for graduate book arts in letterpress printing and artist books. They have a kind of a unique, there's only 2 or 3 schools in the country that offer graduate studies in letterpress printing, which is an old form of printing, but it's updated now with plastic plates, and you can do all these artist collaborations and all these things that you do with books and original artist books that use movable type, but also have imagery. And so I did that for 2 years, and then I got interested in just regular art school and did that for a couple of years there. You can live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for, you know, a couple $100 in rent a month. So I'm sure it's changed a little, but not much. So I did stay down there for quite a few years, but that's how I ended up there. Was first to do so actually I have a whole separate collection of old metal and wood type. If you ever want to zoom on that, just let me know.
That's magnificent. I just want to mention I went to graduate school in art here in Chicago.
Oh, at the Art Institute, or
at the Art Institute, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And is Pet Weather still open, or it's not? Is it still open for everyone, or you can't go in?
Are you speaking of the museum?
No, Petty Ribbon at Mazon Creek.
Oh,
is it still open?
Yes, surface collecting is still allowed.
Good.
And to get to the creek now, you guys, there's a point of entry and then you walk the water, or how does it work? You go to a different farm on the other side?
Now we go to the Kodak's farm, and there's some roads that take us literally to the small path to the shoreline of the creek.
Yeah. And is that the only stretch of the creek essentially, is the one that on one side is Benson and one side is Kodak? Is that, or is there another stretch? We never ventured, we didn't find, the shale layer went back down. So we never went more than about, a quarter of a block in either direction on the Benson side always.
Further upstream, the homes purchase property so they can excavate fossils out of there. So there are more areas that are available. I think, I don't remember who mentioned it. I don't know if it was Dave or Jack Wittry that mentioned that further downstream, there was areas where you could find more horseshoe crabs. But again, that's all private property now, so we don't really have the access to it.
Mm-hmm.
An area of intrigue. We'll just leave it at that.
So Peter, when was the last time you were physically at Pit 11?
So the last time I was physically at Pit 11 was that photograph you saw where we were holding the banner.
That was
farewell, and that was 1974.
74.
Yeah.
Because I believe the reclaiming or restoration of the landscape, there was a law put into place about mining reclamation. Right. That was around the mid 70s.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was universal. So I think it was statewide, and
right.
They began to level the spoil piles from shaft mining and planting. They started tree planting and all the root, binding or the sediment binding plants and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And I think we knew that is why my father had us on this memorial trip. But then the following year, Gene took the group, so that it must have taken a few years for that reclamation to really kick in.
Have you seen any photographs of Pit 11 since?
Yeah. Rich, Rich sent me some pictures. Yeah. Rich,
it's breathtaking, isn't it?
Yeah. But then he found that incredible shrimp. So hey, it's still good pickings if you're.
Right. It's just you got to be determined. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's almost no exposed shale. It's virtually none.
Yeah.
Actually, we're kind of at the tail end of what we kind of consider the season there now, because the plants are really kind of growing up. So you really get out there March 1st, and mid-May is pretty much the end. I mean, there's been years that we've gone out to mid-June, but the ticks really come out, and it's really hard to see the ground. We'll be back next spring again. Keith, you go out to the islands. You can go out there a little bit later in the year. Is that correct?
Yes, but only a little bit. As the seasons change, the rushes get really hard to get through in certain places to some of those ridge lines. There's brush that still has to be contended with, but a lot of the walking paths that I have gone on have been in grassy areas. So it's not as bad as it relates to fighting your way through the brush, but even the islands are getting inundated with thickets.
Keith, there's been a few times in the fall we've gone out with a boat on this in the south end and kind of climbed up the ridges and down under the plants on the other side. And, I'm not going to say the luck was good. We found some jellies. That's about really it. Maybe a shrimp or two here and there, but it's hard to find concretions nowadays. We still get out though.
Yeah, they started to reclaim, I think, 75. There was a period, maybe 7 to 8 years, where it was just open and you go and do there. I remember going back in the early 80s once, but my family, we were there from 70 to 72 several times. Then before they actually started to fence it off because of the construction for the nuclear power plant. Because then there was a time where it was not accessible while they were building the plant, and then really flooding the Braidwood Lake for because they diverted the Kankakee River to make that giant Braidwood Lake, because they needed that for cooling water for the Braidwood plant. So after the mining stopped, it was sort of open. A lot of people built their collections during then. I think Testa once said that he'd go there after, those late 70s periods a lot too. It was just sort of open. but it was like starting to get more overgrown, and they were starting to reclaim areas. But
and then I think that once they started to fence it off, the only way you could get in is on the field museum trips. And I know they used to rent a school bus and you could go out there on the trip where it was pretty controlled, but I know we did that a couple times, but you found very, very little.
Less and less.
The Dedinas had a bunch of fossils that they had found in the late 70s, at least in a couple of the flats that I purchased, and they were labeled. It was like 78, 79, stuff like that. You know,
yeah, that's when they were still open. I mean, again, it was not really completely fenced, I believe. That didn't happen until early 80s when the big construction for the power plant, the reactors began.
We brought some things from Tucson.
Yeah, that was the wolves.
Peter, I've got a question. I'm kind of a rookie at these concretions. I don't know that much about them, but has anybody determined how long the process took once the creature or plant died and sank to the bottom, that the whole process took to be able to form that concretion? I mean, because a lot of these things show detail that would be lost if there was any lengthy period, like the fish with the scales and stuff, I would think would break up if it was laying there very long without starting to already fossilize, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah. And I would imagine there's maybe someone listening who can give the definitive here, but I think that from what I remember reading, the decomposition chemistry of the creature being fossilized affected that mud pretty quickly. And there was a process that started almost immediately that changed the local chemistry around the thing being fossilized. And that went towards, preserving it. I think it had to be anaerobic. The mud had to keep oxygen out. And then, when the mud gets compacted into shale, that's a longer process. So it is a curious balance between something that must have had to happen quite quickly and then a longer, there's like two parts to the problem of preserving something in a concretion. One part would be immediately some things have to happen within, 24 hours that influenced the mud, and the mud would have to have been anaerobic, I would imagine. And then there had to have been a much longer process that compressed it. Does anyone have the skinny on this?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the encapsulation has to happen quickly because otherwise, there would be degradation of the quality of the organic tissue. How quickly, people have done studies and buried these, try to do things, but certainly within days, it's being encapsulated into a gel-like sort of state. But yeah, it's anaerobic, and there's other EH chemistry kind of things going on. But then to harden in, to lithify, then that happens over a much longer period of time. But if you've got the preservation already happening from the organism because it's, it's a sandy, shaly matrix. The best stuff is obviously the very fine, silty shales. There are some sandstone concretions too. They don't preserve very well, but there are some in the strata that have a little more sandy matrix from the delta. But the best stuff was always in. And some stuff had more iron pyrite because there was more sulfur in it. And so that's where, remember, you notice some concretions are very black compared to more tan limon, just basic siderite around the matrix. But if there's more black, then there's a lot more pyrite. And often those were the ones that would decay quicker in museum cases because the sulfur content with water, it hydrolyzes the sulfuric acid. Basically. So I think anyways collect there a lot knows those black ones often. They could be very beautiful, but some of the black ones were actually oozing sulfur almost. You can almost see edges of sulfur on them. And they weigh different too. The more black ones are slightly more dense. I mean, I've done studies where, statistically it's a little different, the density. And, it would be great to try to have, the thing about the river is you could see the head wall. Back in the day, for those of us who could get into the actual pit, that's the only other place you could see the head wall. But us little kid collectors weren't doing that. But Gene Charlie Shabika was doing that. I mean, I have his dissertation. So that's what they're actually trying to find, where some of, because, there's different layers that those of us who know the river, different things are, different kind of concretions are at different layers in the strata there too. Anyway, quickly, several parts, just like Peter said, and still pretty unique. And they're very aesthetically pleasing. That's what I've always liked about them. I mean, I teach at the art school at Columbia College. So speaking of paper stuff, Peter, we had a pretty big paper, book and paper printing thing, but I'm a scientist by trade.
Yes, Columbia, you had a graduate program. Yep.
Right, but I've always appreciated, of course, the aesthetic beauty of the Mazon Creek concretions, not just because they were our thing, but the beauty of them, just the beautiful symmetry, etc.
Peter, along those lines, kind of, did you find in the shales, say on Mazon Creek, did you ever find fossils in just the shale itself and not inside a concretion? Or is it fair to say that every fossil has to be in a concretion, I guess?
Yeah, so you can find, traces of plants and things like that in the shale. But the shale is pretty breakable. It's not an extremely firm shale. So what you would find sometimes is the impression of a leaf or something in the shale itself. I mean, there's plenty of fossil strata, even in the United States, that exist in shale layers that are quite extraordinary. I'll have fish in them and all of that, like the Wyoming Kemmerer shales that have these gorgeous fish and things. But
sharks. I have a shark spine from Pit 4 in the Black Shale.
In the Black Shale, a shark spine? Yeah, so that's really interesting.
There's
that wasn't in the concretion; it was just in the shale.
No, just the shale.
Okay.
Not common by any means. I forget where I acquired it, but there are some fossils in the. Now, how that corresponds to some of the other black shales of the sequence, like they have over at Oglesby, I'm not sure where you can get really good fossils in that, but you have to work for it. It's not common by any means. That paper by Zangrel from the Field Museum has some gorgeous specimens out of the Black Shale.
Right. Some of the Black Shale time also was out of Pit 14 for a very short period of time that was open, and you found it's exactly what you're talking about. Shark spines, found some shark's teeth.
It was 14.
Yeah, 14, yeah.
Okay, I acquired that thing so many years ago that
I'm almost positive it was 14. There could have been maybe in some others, but I would say the bulk of the material that came out of Black Shale would have been Pit 14. And it was a very small thing that was only open for a short period of time. And a lot of, if you put that under a microscope, the shale, there's probably all sorts of graptolites, all sorts of things in there that you don't see.
How many pits are there at Mazon Creek?
Part of the same sequence.
15 or 16 different pits. You're right. I've seen a bunch of those papers from some fossils from Pit 14. And back 5-10 years ago when Pit 2, Fossil Rock Campgrounds, was open, we used to find quite a few fossil plant impressions in the shale. They would crumble as they dried. They weren't sort of long-lived, but certainly we tried. Keith, you and I and Andrew, we certainly tried bringing some home, and they generally dried out and just kind of crumbled away.
Here's something that's different too. I got this from Braceville. I actually have a fragment of a crinoid from Braceville, which is
Are you trying to show it?
It's buried in a drawer here somewhere.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Cause
I can get it out at some point, but
well, you didn't have your video. You don't have your video on, so that's what I was wondering.
No, I don't know where it is at the moment. It's in one of these drawers. I'll come across it, but it's probably floated in on the current, and it's Braceville's. I suppose it's possible it came from down south where the more open marine conditions existed, like down towards Pontiac. There are crinoids down there, and that's not that far south of Braceville. I think it might be different age, but I'm sure there were crinoids around in the open ocean. So you do get things in the shale occasionally, but not a lot.
Peter, I have a question. You mentioned Pit 11. Obviously, you showed us pictures of your field trips there, and Greer School, which I believe is Pit 1. Were you aware at the time of the other pit numbers, or were they accessible to you or open?
Yeah, so we, I don't know that we ever went to another pit, and this would be something that I would have to ask Paul about, and if he remembers. We knew there was other pits, and we knew that people would say, "Oh, well, that pit has certain things. You can get some ferns in that pit, or you can get, that pit's had reputations." But the shining star was always Pit 11, so we always ventured back to Pit 11. I don't have a memory of going to another pit. I have a vague memory of going to Pit 4, but I would have to see if I could track that down. I think that there was something about, for us, the fossils were a big part of it, but it was the fact that Pit 11 was such a grand badland that it just drew us. But we knew there were other pits, and I mean, we were a little dependent on also, we didn't have GPS, we didn't have Google Maps, we knew the route to Pit 11. We knew the tricks to get there. And so we would be going, you're talking high school into, we're first driving, and then there was a stretch there in high school, you'd first get your license, and then we could go on our own, and we would do the route to Pit 11. That's what we knew.
Yeah, I did the same thing. The purpose of getting my driver's license wasn't to cruise; it was to go down to Pit 11. There was another area called Dresden Lakes. I'm not sure what pit number that might have been, but I know that in the 50s, probably more people collected there. I know that a guy named Wilbur Rath at the Lizardro Lapidary School at that point in time used to collect there and had a magnificent collection. So
Wilbur was a member of ESCONI back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he might have been part of the Plants Through Time display too. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. And worked with like John Ade and Dick Ade and those guys, yeah. Because ESCONI used to present that at the flower show down at McCormick Place every year.
And at the Chicagoland show at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, when that started up, yeah.
It was an incredible display. If anybody can remember it, it was just really, really well done. Right. Even, I would say, even by today's standards.
Yeah, we have some pictures of that. Some of those had even real plants, not just fossil plants, and it kind of spanned not just Carboniferous but other time periods. Isn't that right, John?
Yeah, yeah, it was really well done.
I know the quality of the plants that potentially could come out of Dresden Lakes was just spectacular, and even up into the 80s, it was still producing quite well. Just not as many hills open, but if you get the right spot, you could come back with a lot.
Yeah, it was probably like the same quality like at Greer School. It was,
some Elonichthys come out of that place that were just, I mean, these are the 6+ inch variety, long and 3 inches plus wide. They were just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think I was there once or twice. I didn't get anything on those days. I got concretions, just didn't get anything in them.
Yeah.
Chris Kodat always told me when I asked him about that, he said there were certain places you would go to find them, but you'd have to know where those places were. Like people didn't tell you.
Elonichthys is Rich.
Yeah, and Rich Rock, he got an Elonichthys from there that he had bought a few years ago that he brought to a river trip. That was actually breathtaking.
I saw Rich's collection, his first collection, before he sold it. when he had that big double fern that he had. It was a neuropterus, was I think a big pecopterus on it. I'm not sure where that one came from. It might have come from Pit 6, which was pretty well done by the time I started collecting in the mid-70s. But that was one of the best plants I'd seen in person. He used to put that thing in the Chicagoland show once in a while.
Pit 6 was sort of in the area of Dresden Lakes, right? Isn't that
I'm not
that thing
sure.
that was picked up?
I was there once. I was at that place once with Rich, and there wasn't much there when I was there. It pretty much had been, it just wasn't producing anymore.
Yeah, and those, I mean, even back in the early 70s and things, Dresden Lakes and things, that had been mined a long time ago.
Yeah, there was still some stuff coming out of there in the 80s, though, because there were a few.
Yeah. But my point was it was just starting to get overgrown and
yes,
to make it more difficult to find things. Yeah.
You had to search for the open areas and hope that there were concretions available at Dresden Lakes. So I came home with a few buckets from there, but it was just one of those trips I just didn't get. I had trips to the creek like that too. You get concretions, but nothing much of anything in them. It happens.
Yeah.
Happens now too.
Oh yeah.
Well, Peter, it sure brings back memories, all your pictures.
Thanks. Yeah, for me too.
And for us who I didn't start collecting until 2005. In fact, it was 1 year after I read an article that came out in the Chicago Reader called "The Vanishing Mother Lode." And not only did it discuss, obviously, the paleoecology and the geology of the concretion formation and the fossils, but also the characters in this community, and the impression anyway that I had that so much of it was private property and being overgrown and reclaimed, etc. But the following year I went on a field trip to Pit 11, and that was the beginning of this pathology.
Yeah.
So Peter, to watch your presentation is to like kind of fill in with imagery some of the stories that I've accumulated since 2005, about the golden age, right? And Pit 11 was extraordinary, right? So many new animal forms were described from there because it had a marine community there.
Yeah, and that is why we were so drawn to Pit 11, because it was well known that it was the place where you could go for animals, and since we had Mazon for the plants, you didn't expect to find an animal at Mazon went on an average trip, and you were just looking for a beautiful plant. So that's what drew us to Pit 11, was this idea that there was something about when you were saying there's ticks there now, I was just thinking to myself, how hilarious that is. A tick on your leg, is like a horror, and a tick in a concretion is like the greatest find of that year.
Yeah, you could say that again.
Does anybody have any idea how many plants and animals have been identified from the Mazon Creek or Pit 11 or any of those that are not found anyplace else in the world, or anything? I mean, are there a lot of specimens that are unique just to this particular area?
Yeah, well, certainly the Tully Monster was one.
Right.
And, you don't get to be the Illinois state fossil if you're not pretty special. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there was there was just the sheer volume of the different organisms made for quite a few holotypes, like unique like perfect versions of a specimen, and then there would be variations. But it's in the literature, so I'm sure there's a number.
The number of insects that came out of the Mazon Creek biota, I don't know, somebody could probably clarify here, but I think it's close to 50% of the ones from the Pennsylvanian have come out of that area. Is that, some of you guys might know, Paul?
Well, maybe I should know that, but I don't. But there are a lot of insects and well, a lot of the jellyfish and the worms are, and some of the shrimp, I think, are unique to Mazon Creek or to Illinois. So I don't have an exact number, and that's a good question, and I just don't know off the top of my head. You could probably look through Jack Wittry's book and get a rough idea of what that is.
Yeah.
And Paul, do you think some of that might be just collection bias because you've got Pit 11's pretty unique, and it could be in other places, but you just weren't preserved.
Well, that was the really nice thing about Pit 11 is it's so close to Chicago. You got a lot of people collecting, so you get a lot of the rare specimens that you might not find elsewhere. So that's but it's also one of the. There's not a lot of places where you can get soft-bodied animals and insects. It's just really rare in the fossil record period. So it's a really nice window into the Pennsylvania. Right. There's not that many of them around.
You're finding
probably all collection bias, right?
You were finding some of the same stuff in Indiana, south of Terre Haute, around that area. I even found some spiders in that material. I don't know if it's exactly the same, if it's a correlative or if it's a different age, but it's very, very similar material. You have to look at the entire swamp area, the offshore area of the Midwest. It's it's not just Illinois, although we have the lion's share, which is nice. But there are other areas that have similar material.
I think it's younger, John. I think the Terre Haute stuff's a little younger.
Okay.
In age. Not much, but some.
I mean, it's similar to much of the Carboniferous out east and things like that. Most of the plants and things, I don't know how many are unique here, and some of the insects probably just because they're found here. I think what's truly unique is like what Paul said is the soft body preservation and so the Tully monsters and the jellyfish especially, and I guess some of the worms. That's what's probably existed over the entire Carboniferous ocean of North America, but it's the preservation here especially, so that's what makes our Tully monster. And it could have, if it wasn't that, it probably would have been Essexella, right? If you think about it, that would have been the next choice to have as a unique state fossil, but they probably existed over into what's now Europe because everything was co-joined. But that's where you have the unique preservation here to preserve that unique part of the fauna.
And the Y and the H animals.
Yeah. All those are the big candidates, but the Tully monster is better, I think we all admit.
Yes, because it's a nice shellless mollusk.
Plus, the name is better. If you would have said the state fossil of Illinois is the Y, well, there's a lot of Y problems in Illinois, but I don't think we want that.
What was that? I thought I heard something. Maybe not.
People really like animals that have eyes. Trilobites, Tully monsters. If it has an eye, it's much more charismatic.
I was speaking up for the eyes earlier. Yes, I'm all for the eyes.
Proboscises are also good.
Yeah, that's good too. That's right. It's got they got it. Tully has it all.
Yeah, like calling the name too. I mean, monster. That's the best part. Yeah. I wrote an article for the Field Museum magazine 15 years ago on the history of that thing. Obviously we all know Francis, but then calling it a monster, sealed the deal. As an art person, that. Sometimes you got to get marketing and all these other things. Right. It's called it could have been called the Tully creature, and it would have, or the Tully animal. Pretty bland.
Well, it must have done something with the teeth in that proboscis, right? It must have bit things. So I guess to something smaller than it was nasty.
Yeah.
It's all a matter of perspective.
Thank you for the slides. I do remember that sign with the Wilmington Coal.
Yeah, right.
and specifically with the Three Musketeer thing with the hat. I remember that.
Yep.
You turn left, come here.
Yep.
If I could
there's something very, very Illinois about that whole, a day out there, heading a day out there past the cornfields and finding that sign and the coal and the hills. Yeah, there was something very, you were you know, you were in Chicago and then an hour later you were in Illinois.
Agreed.
Well, thanks everyone. I really enjoyed it.
Very good
Very
presentation.
good, Peter.
Oh,
Thank you
thanks.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
It was really fun for me too.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Really
thank
fun.
you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very good.
Thank you, guys. It's fun.
And Peter, shout out to your father.
Yes. And mother.
Pretty amazing gift he gave you and your
Yeah.
family.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
There we go.
Thank you. It was fun. Nice meeting all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you, Peter.
So you guys can, you know, stay in touch and if you're in Brooklyn, come by.
And so do you collect in Brooklyn?
We collect old printing equipment and metal and wood type.
I'll tell you one story, Peter. There is one Mazon Creek fossil in the AMNH.
Oh yeah?
And it's,
Just one?
It's in the collection. So about a decade ago, they came out to the Field Museum for some conference, and it was a vertebrate. Paul, you know, well, you're not in the vertebrate, but it was the collections manager of dinosaurs. And at any rate, they had gotten in touch with me to go out to the river. And so I took them to the river because I sort of had access for a long while through Pete Kodat. Then we went to Pit 11. They really wanted to go to Pit 11. This was, some of you will remember that about 12 years ago, ESCONI, I don't know who got the money, but got a little money to have a 10-acre area sort of scraped. Okay, it was right off the road there near Monster Lake. Anyway, it was a 10-acre area scraped, and it's like it had fossil collecting. We went there, and just was flat, and it was, you know, probably we weren't there the day after, but it sort of picked over. We got like 5 concretions. All right. But about a month later, I got a picture from my friend, and he said, Rhabdoderma. He had a beautiful, maybe the best I've seen is a Rhabdoderma, which is the coelacanth with an egg sac.
Oh my goodness.
And so he saw, you know, he put it in it's in the collections, in the vertebrate collections of the AMA. I saw it when I went behind the scenes.
So they have it on display, or?
No, it's just in the collections. But he said it's the only Mazon Creek thing in the American Museum. And since he had the freedom to put it in. He's like the collection manager of dinosaurs, but he vertebrate fossils. So he opened the drawer down in the bowels, and there it was.
All right, we got to help them out. They obviously need more.
Well, I mean, that wasn't their thing. They dumped their plants and all these other things to Yale and other stuff. But yes, so that's
interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting.
In fact, Keith or somebody, part of the same story, I think when we were at Mazon last year, remember somebody found a hammer?
It was me found it, Dave.
And that same day, they lost my hammer, at the river. And so it was lost for a decade until I sort of mentioned this, I think, to Rich somebody last year. He goes,
and it resurfaced.
This thing? I said, yeah, that's it. So I let the guy know, at least I found my hammer again.
Yeah, the river gave up its secrets. There you go.
Give me the Rhabdoderma. I probably gave him the concretion, darn it. Yeah. Oh, well. But then we got 5 concretions. That was it. It was great. Beautiful box.
Yeah, that's really funny. That's good. Well, yeah, museums can be, they can be stubborn about what they want and what they don't want.
Well, they only have so much. Best dinosaur collection in the world, so they'll take that.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
Well, in the old days, it was the museum's mission to collect everything as much as they can, but they're not funded for that, and we don't have room or space, so you really have to choose the focus of what your collection is going to be.
Right.
Right. Well, at least the politics, private property is an issue, but the politics of concretions and all, it's not fraught, it's not a fraught politics. It's sort of, it's a happy byproduct of an unhappy thing, coal production, but it's like in a sense, it's sort of a guilt-free pleasure, right?
Well, it's become big money, and that's all of us who
Yeah,
on the
that's
river
true.
know what's gone on in the river so recently,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yes, the internet.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess you can monetize anything.
Still a great place. It's our place. That's how I like to think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it's starting to peter out.
I'm going to sign out. Thank you very much, Peter.
You're welcome.
Brought back some things when I was really little too.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any pictures of that when we went, but we're going back in those days. But I
You
do have
might.
the thing signed, and I can find it. But I actually have it on a display somewhere. But
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Peter, I'm going to say goodnight. Also, I'm getting ready for the second day of our Braceville field
Yeah, you guys are going tomorrow.
trip early tomorrow morning. Yeah. So
Cool.
Keith,
That's
I'll see
great.
you at 7:30.
Yes.
And
Cool.
Peter, thank you again for sharing.
Sure, it was
You know,
fun.
with an open heart and family dogs, and I mean the whole thing. It was very personal, very intimate, and a great view into the past.
Yeah.
Thank you.
for me
Thank you
too.
again. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Wonderful.
Thanks for
So who
attending.
wants a 5:15 wake up call?
I know. I got to get to bed. Yeah.
I'll be sleeping in, Keith.
See you, Valerie and Bill. Okay.
Peter, if you send me a photo of that cockroach, I'll be glad to look it up for you and send a
Good.
nice photo and
I'm
stuff.
totally
And
gonna do
anything
that.
else that you might have
Thank you.
donated
Okay,
that we
good. Good. I will.
And when things change and we can have visitors and stuff, if you're ever in Chicago, let me know and I'll give you a tour of the museum.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks.
Sure.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Night,
everybody.
Dave.
Bye.
Thank you
All right.
very much, Peter.
You're welcome. Thanks. It was really
Thanks
fun.
again, Peter.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.
As the numbers drizzle.
Marv.
Good luck tomorrow, guys.
I guess Marv left.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, we miss you, Rich.
Yeah, Marv is gone.
I miss you guys too, but you know, I'm here with my daughter. I love that too.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
right. You got to do what you got to do.
It's a season.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's nice.
It's good stuff.
Guys, toodles. I want to take off. It was a good. I love history of stuff, and this was really really good.
It was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
Good,
recording.
John.
Good luck at the
night, guys.
Braceville.
Yeah, turn the rain off.
Good night.
Night.
You're still recording, I think, Keith.
Oh, yes, I am, aren't I?